1990, the book the town that started the Civil War, about your little burg here, in which your little college plays a prominent role. Let's not start another Civil War tonight. I also stumbled across Oberlin College when I was writing a paper at the University of Texas shortly thereafter to fulfill my upper division writing requirement. I was teaching at the University of Texas. I was teaching at the LBJ school. I'd been accepted in the PhD program, and they said, there's only one little problem, you've got to get your BA. So at the age of 43, I went back to finish my undergraduate degree. I didn't finish. But I did write a paper about the 1896 presidential election, and Oberlin figures in there in a little bitty way. And it's a reminder of the roots of the college. In 1896, the college Republicans held a national meeting in Chicago, and 21,000 college students got cheap train tickets to Chicago in the middle of September of 1896 for a national convention with a heavy contingent, according to the Chicago newspapers, from Oberlin College. And the speaker, the keynote speaker at this massive rally, was the relatively unknown but dynamic young police commissioner of the city of New York, Theodore Roosevelt. And there were a bunch of Oberlin students sitting in the aisles. Tonight, what I'd like to do is this. Let me start by talking a little bit about the 2010 elections. I think there are four big issues that are sort of being fought out all across the country in a pretty amazing way. And let me describe those issues from the perspective of, as fairly and as quickly as I can, what I think the Democrat approach is, and then describe where I think the Republicans are coming from. And then we'll get into Q&A. We'll take every question you want until you're exhausted and everybody wants to go home. All I ask is do not write profanity on the cards. It will shock some of the ushers who have to sort through them. The college Democrats in particular have asked you not to write profanity on them because they've got some sensibilities that they don't want to have offended. So be polite, but ask anything you want. But this is a pretty remarkable election, because if you look back 18 months ago, you wouldn't have expected to see an election as contentious as this. The country had seen an aspirational and inspiring figure elected as President of the United States with a commanding mandate. And it was something good that every American could take pride in. It says something about our country that in the lifetimes of many people in this room, that an African American was elected President of the United States. Last year, and I said it was an historic election. And one student said to me, "What do you mean historic?" And I said, historic because 3 miles away from this little university in Memphis, Tennessee, Martin Luther King was gunned down by a solitary bigot because he had dared to stand for the right of every American, black and white, man and woman, to have the right to vote in the South in our lifetimes. And America had high hopes and high aspirations. They thought this was going to be a centrist president. He said, I don't want to be the president of red states or blue states. I want to be the president of the United States. He sounded like a fiscal conservative. He said in every stump speech, quote, I will scrub the budget line by line and end government programs that do not work. He sounded like a deficit hawk. He attacked the deficits of the Bush years, which had run about 2.1% of GDP, slightly above the World War II average, post-World War II average of 1.6%. But he attacked them, and we thought it wasn't, they were too large. And then in Ohio, as in many battleground states across the country, the second most widely shown Barack Obama campaign ad in the fall said, quote, government-run health care extreme, end quote. And yet, we now find ourselves deeply involved in a hot debate over four big issues, in which the answer of this administration has been deeply different than what it offered during the campaign. The President wisely, when he came into office, recognized the American economy was hurting and called for a stimulus plan. I thought it was right to do so. It's a smart move on his part. Even before he took office, he said, we need to stimulate the American economy. And once in office, he quickly passed and signed an $814 billion stimulus bill. A remarkably quick achievement. And yet, what has happened? We should judge the President by his own words. We should judge the President by his own standards. We should judge the President by the measures that he put in place. for the success of this piece of legislation. You know, look, I used to be in the government. I used to be a government bureaucrat, and unlike alcoholism or tobacco, there is no rehab program available. I'm Carl, I'm a recovering government bureaucrat. So I actually read this stuff. And on January 9th of 2009, 11 days before taking office, the President's Chief Economic Advisor, Christine Romer, the designated chairman, the incoming chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, and Jared Bernstein, Vice President-elect Joe Biden's chief economist, put out a document explaining the philosophical underpinnings of the stimulus bill. What I learned in government service is not only always read this stuff, but A, pay attention to the footnotes, B, pay close attention to the charts, and always, number 3, always read the appendices. In there is a chart that says if we pass the stimulus bill, this is what's going to happen. And if we don't pass the stimulus bill, this is what's going to happen. If we don't pass the stimulus bill, they said, unemployment will rise to nearly 10% and remain at 9% throughout 2009 and 2010. If we pass the stimulus bill, by the end of the summer of 2009, unemployment will top out at 8% and decline thereafter. Yet we're getting the economic performance that we were promised if we didn't pass the bill. Unemployment has matched exactly what they said would happen, and we didn't pass $814 billion in stimulus. And why didn't it work? It didn't work because underlying it all is a failed premise, a Keynesian notion that in order to stimulate the economy, all you needed to do was to spend money. Oh, they said, this is going to go for shovel-ready projects, leaving this appetizing view that what we were doing is we were building roads and bridges. But if you take a look at the bill and read the fine print, 3.3% of the entire $814 billion goes to either the Federal Highway Administration for roads, bridges, or mass transit, or to the Federal Aviation Administration for expanding runways. That's all the shovel-ready projects that are in there. Oh, we were told, the President said this money's going to go out right away. Do you know that we will spend more money between next year, 2011, and 2019 under the stimulus bill than we spent last year when we were supposed to be trying to stimulate the economy? I mean, think about this. We got the guys dead, dying of a heart attack right there on the stage. Up runs the EMS. The guy pulls out the batteries, starts waxing up the cables, yells clear, and puts the old pump on it. It says this will only take a week or two. If we wanted to stimulate the economy, why didn't we do things that would stimulate the economy last year rather than spending more money in the 8 years to come than we did last year? And why? Because of the appendix. Appendix 1. Take a look at it. You can go on the internet incidentally and pull this document down. Just say, Stimulus, Romer, Bernstein, January 9th. You can find it on the internet. What a hell of an invention Al Gore made, don't you think? I think it's fabulous. But you look at the document and look at the appendix, and there's a nifty little chart, and it says, here is the amount of economic growth that will be generated for each dollar of spending under this bill. For every dollar of spending, there will be $1.55 in economic growth. Now, if that's the case, why do we stop at $814 billion? If you can magically spend $1 and create $1.55 in economic growth, why don't we do like the $10 trillion stimulus bill? We would have had $15 trillion in economic growth, and we could have thrown one heck of a party with the $5 trillion that we magically created out of nowhere. No nation in the history of the world has ever spent its way to prosperity, and yet that's exactly what this bill attempted to do. I mean, the bill has a lot of nutty things in it. Look, there is $5 billion in the bill for smoking cessation and obesity counseling. What does that have to do with economic growth? I've met a lot of unemployed people over the last year and a half, but I must admit I have yet to run into my first unemployed fat coach. Yet that's exactly what this bill did.